What's up, guys? It's Jay from Revolution Radio, and so I want to take the time to talk about the whistleblower's complaint, which was kind of a big story today. There is so much to cover, and so I'm going to do the best I can at just pinpointing some of the highlights of it, so to speak, and a little bit of background, but the size we like to do these videos, I'm not going to go too deep in, and of course, I imagine there will be plenty to cover yet tomorrow and the day after that and the day after that. So let me just start. So the complaint starts off as this. In the course of my official duties, I have received information from multiple U.S. government officials that the President of the United States is using the power of his office to solicit interference from a foreign country in the 2020 U.S. elections. This interference includes, among other things, pressuring a foreign country to investigate one of the president's main domestic political rivals. The president's personal lawyer, Mr. Rudolph Giuliani, is a central figure in this effort. Attorney General Barr appears to be involved as well. Over the past 4 months, more than half of a dozen U.S. officials have informed me of various facts related to this effort. The information provided herein was relayed to me in the course of official interagency business. It is routine for the U.S. officials with responsibility for a particular regional or functional portfolio to share such information with one another in order to inform policy making and analysis. I was not direct witness to most of the events described. However, I found my colleagues' accounts of these events to be credible because in almost all cases, multiple officials recounted fact patterns that were consistent with one another. In addition, a variety of information consistent with these private accounts has been reported publicly. I am deeply concerned that the actions described below constitute a serious or flagrant problem, abuse, or violation of law or executive order that does not include difference of opinions concerning public policy matters, consistent with the definition of urgent concern. I am therefore fulfilling my duty to report this information through proper legal channels to relevant authorities. I am also concerned that these actions pose risk to the U.S. national security and undermine the U.S. government's efforts to deter and encounter foreign interference in the U.S. elections. To the best of my knowledge, the entirety of this statement is unclassified when separated from classified enclosure. I have endeavored to apply the classification standards outlined in the executive order. If a classification marking is applied retroactively, I believe it is incumbent upon the classifying authority to explain why such a mark was applied and to which specific information it pertains. All right, and then it goes on. Early the morning of the 25th of July, the president spoke by telephone with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. I do not know which side initiated the call. This was the first publicly acknowledged call between the two leaders since a brief congratulatory call after Mr. Zelensky won the presidency on the 21st of April. Multiple White House officials with direct knowledge of the call informed me that. After initial exchange of the pleasantries, the president used the remainder of the call to advance his personal interests. Namely, he sought to pressure the Ukraine leader to take actions to help the president's 2020 re-election bid. According to the White House officials who had direct knowledge of this call, the president pressured Mr. Zelensky to initiate or continue an investigation into the activities of former Vice President Joseph Biden and his son Hunter, to assist in uncovering the allegations of Russian interference in the 2016 U.S. presidential elections originated in Ukraine, with a specific request that the Ukraine leader locate and turn over servers used by the Democratic National Committee and examined by the U.S. cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike, which initially reported the Russian hackers had penetrated the DNC's network in 2016, and to meet or speak with two people the president named explicitly as his personal envoys of these matters, Mr. Giuliani and Attorney General Barr, to whom the president referred multiple times in tandem. Um, the president also named Ukraine's uh, Prosecutor General Mr. Yulary Lutsenko and suggested that Zelensky might want to keep him in his position. The White House officials who told me this information were deeply disturbed by what transpired in the phone call. They told me that there were already a discussion ongoing with the White House lawyers about how to treat the call because of the likelihood in the officials' retelling that they had witnessed the president abuse his office for personal gain. The Ukrainian side was the first to publicly acknowledge the phone call on the evening of the 25th of July. A readout was posted on the website of the Ukrainian president that contained the following. Donald Trump expressed his conviction that the new Ukraine government will be able to quickly improve Ukraine's image and complete the investigation of corruption cases that have held back the cooperation between Ukraine and the United States. Aside from the above-mentioned cases dealing with the Biden family and the 2016 U.S. elections, I was told by the White House officials that no other cases were discussed. Based on my understanding, there were approximately a dozen White House officials who listened to this call, a mixture of policy and officials and duty officers in the White House station room, as it is customary. The officials I spoke with told me that participation in the call had not been restricted in advance because everyone expected to be a routine call with the foreign leader. I do not know whether anyone was physically present with the president during the call. In addition to the White House personnel, I was told that the State Department officials, Mr. Ehrlich, I can't say his name, also listened in on the call. I was not the only non-White House official to recover a readout of the call. Based on my understandings, multiple State Departments and Intelligence Committee officials were also briefed on the content of the call. So in this, it also discussed about how this call was downloaded onto a private server and was stored in a special safe, as where there are a few other phone calls. And he goes into actually multiple meetings with Zelensky and Giuliani. And let's see, I do not know whether those officials met or spoke, but I was told separately by multiple U.S. officials that officials from the Ukraine had met with Mr. Giuliani and intended to travel to Washington in mid-August. On the 9th of August, the president told reporters, I think President Zelensky is going to make a deal with President Putin and he will be invited to the White House. And we look forward to seeing him. He's already been invited to the White House and he wants to come. And I think he will. He's a very reasonable guy. He wants to see peace in Ukraine and I actually think he will be coming very soon. Let's see. So I'm trying to hit on. So that was a majority of the big stuff, namely the private server was quite large considering I would expect that Trump would know that it's illegal to record calls and keep them separate. There again, on a private server, we kind of had that issue with Hillary Clinton. That pretty much goes into everything that was named. There's a lot of other stuff that, as I read one of the last ones, it wasn't really relevant to what most people are interested in. It goes into what Trump wanted to be investigated, such as the former President Biden had pressured former Ukraine President Poroshenko in 2016 to fire the Ukraine prosecutor in order to quash a purported criminal probe into Bremershma Holdings, a Ukraine energy company on whose board the vice president's son was on. which again, that's kind of stuff we knew. I'm trying to find if there is anything else that, again, there is more reports about the meetings. There was a few Skype calls arranged by Giuliani and the Ukraine officials. Uh, and then just some other rhetoric about interviews that kind of discuss, like apparently that there was an interview on Fox News where the president had said that pertaining to Ukraine, there's going to be some big and incredible things happening. More details to back up some of what he's saying, and of course the other big one, the holding back up uh, aid to Ukraine in the form of military spending. Um, so that was pretty much what it goes into. And like I said, of course, we know the highlights of it. Trump um, was trying to do a quid pro quo with financial support from America to have the Ukrainian president look into Joe Biden and to try to get dirt on him. And once this was released, Trump did have a breakfast this morning, and he asked his staffers and everybody at that breakfast who was the one who relayed this information to the whistleblower. He equated that person as a spy and um, said that back in the day we dealt with spies in a very different way. Um, he also talked about his actions being very anti-American, and I find that interesting considering the things that Donald Trump is being accused of and the things that he is doing, including threatening his own staff in that manner or threatening the spy whistleblower. Um, that's um, far far more illegal than reporting wrongs. But that is pretty much the entire thing. There's a few, like I said, that it's a very long um, complaint. It is cited multiple times. There's interactions that are accounted for, most of them being meetings or interviews or things like that. But the other important thing to acknowledge is that apparently there is multiple whistleblowers. So that is another thing to understand. I'm sure more will come out tomorrow, as this is the hardest story to stay on top of. Um, the one of the images that I'm showing is where the whistleblower reported about the lockdown on all phones and phone call transactions that he felt were really iffy, um, and namely his officials thought were very hard to protest, so they were stored in a private server. That is also, by the way, impeachable, and it's not even the main thing that anyone's looking at. Um, Due to Trump's own account of the phone call, I would argue that that is enough to impeach him alone. So I imagine these hearings or this committee will push for an impeachment. I can't imagine that it wouldn't. If you were kind of saying, well, there's a little bit of an argument to be had here, think about it this way. If your boss used those same words on you, or if you use those to your boss, you mentioned the pay that you give your employees, you maybe say an action that you want done, and when they say, oh yeah, okay, we can handle it, oh good, well, you'll most likely have a better financial um, next coming weeks, days, months, however you pay your employee. It is without a doubt a quid pro quo, even if I'll be honest, the way that Trump worded it was really smart. He tried to leave a little bit of gray there, a little bit of um, a debatable topic. Now, I mean, any adult would say no, that's not. And I've also heard the argument, well, if Trump is so incompetent, isn't it possible that he didn't think if he worded it that way that it would be illegal? Maybe not, but it's what he did. So, you know, however you look at it, my grandpa used to always tell me that God will forgive ignorance, but the justice system does not. Meaning, if you kill someone and you honestly didn't know you're not supposed to kill someone, you're still going to prison. Um, but yeah, so that's where we're at. I'm interested to see where this goes any further. I definitely wanted to just get out some of those finer points for you guys. I apologize for how bland and black and white that is. I am awful at reading news, especially in such a long form as such. Anyway, I'm curious about your thoughts on this whole thing. Um, where do you think this is going? How do you think that the public is going to respond to this? All those things I'm really curious about your thoughts. Um, how well you believe the whistleblower's complaint. Is it relevant? Are there some things in there that you totally disagree with? The other thing I would like to mention that Trump keeps talking about today before I completely sign out, and another thing I'm really curious about your opinions on, Trump keeps talking about the legality of the Bidens in Ukraine and what they did. To which I would say, let's see the facts. That's my personal opinion. I'm not against it, and you guys know me. I am not a Biden fan, so I just want to see proof. Let's just see the proof. Let's see that what he and his son did. To me, everything I've seen, if you research it and you look into it, that this situation with the prosecutor had already been determined before Biden's vote to dismiss him. So apparently, they're saying they're going to reopen this investigation on that company. I don't know if they are. They probably, to put all, issues to bed, they probably should. But there's absolutely no facts that back up Trump's claim on that. It's the big thing he's been pushing. But I'm curious what you guys think about it. Is there something to that? A bigger thing that's going around. Is this a deep state coup? Is that a possibility? I've talked about it in the video before that even I'm open to that as being a possibility, but and that alone is what does give me a little bit of pause on this. On the other hand, the fact that Trump has done multiple things that deserve impeachment, I kind of don't have a problem with this one. Anyway, again, curious about your thoughts on all of this, guys. Definitely appreciate any of the comments that you guys give us. On Facebook, it's JDylan, JAYDYLAN. On Twitter, it's JC Show VIP. iTunes, Spotify, Google Pod, Anchor. It's all Revolution Radio or Zach Dillon, ZAKKDILLON. And on YouTube, the Community of Ideas. We are growing as a channel to watch. New videos coming in all the time, and actually doing a little bit more work there. So, anyway, thanks a lot, guys. Have a great evening.